My name is Emily Carter. I'm 33 years old, and until last Tuesday, I believed nothing could destroy my family. I was halfway through dinner in my home outside Asheville, North Carolina, when my phone suddenly rang across the kitchen table. The caller ID showed my younger brother, Ryan. The moment I answered, his voice came through cold and strangely calm. "Grandpa passed away this morning," he said. "He left the entire family ranch to me. There's nothing for you." Before I could say a word, I heard cheering in the background. My father laughed loudly while my mother shouted, "Finally, Emily gets nothing." I didn't argue. I didn't cry. Instead, I quietly switched the call to video. Then I turned my phone toward the man sitting across from me. My grandfather calmly looked into the camera, smiled, and took another bite of his steak. "So," he said, "before you divide my property, would you mind letting me finish dinner first?" Ryan's face instantly turned white. My parents froze. No one spoke. A second later, the call ended. The silence inside my kitchen felt almost unreal. Grandpa simply smiled, reached for his iced tea, and continued eating as though nothing unusual had happened. 20 minutes later, my phone exploded with calls and messages from my parents. I ignored every one of them. Whatever explanation they wanted could wait. The next morning, Grandpa and I drove into downtown Asheville to meet our longtime estate attorney, Daniel Harper. He had handled Grandpa's business affairs for nearly 25 years. After hearing everything, Daniel opened a thick file and quietly smiled. "Your brother made one very expensive mistake," he said. He explained that Ryan had somehow found an old copy of Grandpa's will hidden inside a filing cabinet at the family workshop. That document had been canceled years earlier after Grandpa completely updated his estate plan. "The old will has no legal value," Daniel said, sliding the current notarized documents across the desk. "The active estate plan is completely different." Grandpa nodded but remained silent. It wasn't the money that hurt him. It was knowing his own grandson believed his first reaction to hearing bad news should be claiming an inheritance instead of checking if his grandfather was alive. As we prepared to leave, Daniel stopped us. "If Ryan believed that fake will," he said quietly, "he probably won't stop here." Grandpa looked at me for the first time that morning. I saw real disappointment in his eyes. And somehow, I knew our family nightmare had only just begun.
For 2 days, everything was unusually quiet. My parents stopped calling, Ryan disappeared completely, and Grandpa went back to his normal routine at the ranch. Every morning, he walked through the barns, checked the fences, and greeted the workers with the same smile he'd worn for years. Watching him carry on as if nothing had happened almost convinced me the nightmare was over. It wasn't. Late Friday afternoon, a black pickup truck stopped outside my house. Dad climbed out first, followed by Mom and Ryan. None of them looked embarrassed about announcing Grandpa's death while he was still alive. Instead, they looked angry. I opened the front door before they could knock. Mom pushed past me without asking and walked straight into the living room where Grandpa was reading beside the fireplace. "Enough of these games," Dad said. "Emily is manipulating you, and everyone can see it." Grandpa slowly folded his newspaper. "The only people playing games," he replied calmly, "are the ones who tried to bury me before I was dead." Ryan stepped forward, carrying a thick leather folder. "I didn't come here to argue," he said. "I came to help." He placed several documents on the coffee table and slid them toward Grandpa. "We've already prepared everything. Sign these papers today. Transfer the ranch into my company, and we'll take care of the business from now on. You deserve to retire." The room became completely silent. I picked up the first page. It wasn't retirement paperwork. It was a legal transfer that would give Ryan complete ownership of Grandpa's ranch, equipment, and every acre of land. "You actually expected him to sign this?" I asked. Dad pointed at me. "Stay out of it. This is family business." Grandpa reached for the documents. For a brief moment, Ryan smiled, believing he had already won. Then Grandpa calmly tore the entire stack in half. The ripping sound echoed through the room. He dropped the shredded pages onto the floor and looked directly at Ryan. "You've mistaken my kindness for weakness," he said quietly. "Leave my granddaughter's house and don't come back until you remember what family means." Ryan's face darkened. As they walked toward the door, he turned around one last time. "You'll regret this," he said coldly. "If you won't hand me the ranch willingly, a judge will." The front door slammed shut. Grandpa looked at me without saying a word. Somehow, we both knew that threat wasn't empty. 10 days later, a process server stopped outside my house and handed me a thick envelope addressed to my grandfather. The moment I read the first page, my stomach dropped. Ryan had officially filed a petition asking the county court to declare Grandpa mentally incompetent. If the judge approved it, Ryan would gain legal authority to control Grandpa's finances, property, and medical decisions. Grandpa quietly finished reading every page before placing the documents on the kitchen table. "So that's their plan," he said softly. That afternoon, we met Daniel Harper again. After reviewing the petition, he looked surprisingly calm. "They're trying to build a case using small mistakes," he explained. "A missed doctor's appointment, a minor truck accident, forgetting to pay one utility bill on time. Separately, none of these prove incapacity." "So, how do we stop them?" I asked. Daniel smiled. "We don't argue. We prove the truth." 2 days later, we arrived at a respected medical center where Grandpa completed a full cognitive evaluation with an independent specialist. The examination lasted nearly 2 hours. He answered memory questions, solved complex math problems, reviewed financial scenarios, even completed detailed reasoning exercises without hesitation. When the doctor finally walked out with the report, he smiled warmly. "Your grandfather is in excellent cognitive health," he said. "He understands every financial and legal decision he's making. There is absolutely no evidence that he requires a guardian." Relief washed over me. But Grandpa remained unusually quiet during the drive home. Finally, he spoke. "What hurts isn't the lawsuit," he whispered. "It's knowing my own son and grandson wanted strangers to decide whether I was capable of living my own life." A few days later, things became even worse. Relatives suddenly stopped calling. Neighbors looked at us differently. Someone at the grocery store quietly whispered that I was controlling an elderly man for his money. Ryan and my parents had started spreading lies throughout the community. That evening, Daniel called. His voice sounded far more serious than before. "Emily," he said, "I finished reviewing your grandfather's business accounts." There was a long pause. "What I found has nothing to do with guardianship. It's something much bigger. And if these records are accurate, your family hasn't just betrayed your grandfather. They've been stealing from him for years." The following morning, Grandpa and I sat across from Daniel Harper as thick financial records covered the conference table. Every page was marked with bright red tabs. Daniel took a deep breath. "I know why Ryan is so desperate to control the ranch." He slid a bank statement toward us. "Look closely." Dozens of large transfers had been made from Grandpa's ranch account over the last 3 years. At first glance, they looked like payments for farm equipment, fencing supplies, and machinery repairs. But they weren't. Daniel had traced every payment. The invoices were fake. The companies didn't exist. Instead, the money had been redirected into a construction business secretly owned by Ryan. Grandpa stared at the numbers without saying a word. The total stolen amount reached $340,000. I felt sick. Ryan hadn't been protecting the family business. He had been quietly draining it. Daniel continued. "During your cataract surgery 3 years ago, you signed a temporary financial authorization so your son could pay ranch expenses while you recovered." Grandpa slowly nodded. "It expired 4 months later." Daniel looked him in the eyes. "They never stopped using it. Every transfer carried digital approvals from my father and Ryan. The money never repaired the ranch. It disappeared into Ryan's failing investment projects. Now everything finally made sense. The fake death announcement, the old will, the guardianship case. They weren't chasing an inheritance. They were trying to take control before anyone uncovered the missing money." Grandpa removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "I spent my whole life building something for my family," he whispered. "I never imagined my own family would become the people I needed protection from." Daniel carefully gathered the documents into a single folder. "We're no longer defending ourselves," he said. "We're going on the offensive." He immediately prepared a legal response, attaching every bank record, every fraudulent transfer, and every fake invoice to our court filing. Then he looked at Grandpa one final time. "I have one more recommendation. Rewrite your estate plan today." Grandpa didn't hesitate. He picked up the pen. "This time," he said quietly, "my legacy will reward honesty, not greed. None of us realized those signatures were about to destroy everything. Ryan thought he was going to inherit. Court day arrived on a warm Wednesday morning. Grandpa and I walked into the county courthouse while Ryan, my parents, and their attorney were already waiting. Ryan looked completely confident, as if the ranch already belonged to him. His attorney argued that Grandpa's recent mistakes proved he could no longer manage his finances or property. They mentioned a missed medical appointment, a small accident with his pickup truck, and claimed I had isolated him from the family to influence his decisions. When it was Daniel Harper's turn, everything changed. He first submitted Grandpa's independent medical evaluation, confirming he was in excellent mental health and fully capable of making every legal and financial decision. Then Daniel placed another file before the judge. Inside were 3 years of bank records, fake invoices, fraudulent transfers, and detailed financial reports proving that more than $340,000 had been secretly diverted into Ryan's company while Grandpa recovered from surgery. The courtroom became silent. The judge slowly reviewed every page before looking directly at Ryan. "Can you explain these transactions?" Ryan froze. Before he could answer, my father suddenly stood up. "He handled the business," Dad shouted. "I didn't know where the money went." Ryan immediately pointed back at him. "You approved every payment." Within seconds, they were blaming each other across the courtroom. The judge slammed her gavel. "Enough." She dismissed the guardianship petition immediately, stating there was absolutely no evidence that Grandpa lacked mental capacity. She then referred the financial records to state investigators for possible criminal fraud and elder financial exploitation. Ryan's face lost all color. He had come expecting ownership. Instead, he walked out facing an investigation. Outside the courthouse, Grandpa handed Daniel one final envelope. "My new estate plan," he said. Daniel smiled. Everything had already been signed. My father and Ryan were officially removed from the inheritance forever. Half of the ranch would remain with me, while the rest would establish an agricultural scholarship, helping hardworking students build honest futures. As we drove home, Grandpa looked across the endless fields he had spent 40 years building. "You know," he said with a peaceful smile, "the greatest inheritance isn't land. It's knowing the right people will protect it." For the first time in months, our family ranch felt like home again. And Ryan finally learned that greed doesn't just cost you money. Sometimes it costs you your entire family.